Hi, my name is Mark. I'm a teacher, and today I'm going to tell you about my flipped classroom experience. A good teacher will do everything they possibly can to help all of their students and all their needs, but we're only one person, so it's impossible to help every student all the time. Education really hasn't changed much in the last 200 years, which begs the question, do we have the perfect system? I don't really know, but I do know that there are some tools that we have now that we didn't have 200 years ago. Technology has been a recent innovation in education in the last 30 years. Now, is it the answer to everything? Absolutely not. Some schools put it in, they don't train their staff, and it's really more of a hindrance than it is a help. But what if technology was used for the right reason, with the right goal of being to enhance student learning? Well, that's what I did. Now, my geometry class is about 50 minutes long. My typical geometry class begins with a little mini lecture that I give, and I charted the length of time for each of these mini lectures to introduce the new concepts of the day. Over a span of 8 weeks, which is a total of 45 different lessons, the average amount of time I was spending on these mini lessons every day was about 14.5 minutes. Which is lost time to the students as far as getting their work done and as far as me being able to tutor them. So they lose 14.5 minutes, which leaves them with the remaining 35.5 minutes to get their homework done. Well, any math teacher's worth their salt is going to assign more than 35 minutes worth of homework, and so these students inevitably end up taking their homework home to work on it when there is not a teacher present to help them on a problem that they may get stuck on. So I asked myself a few questions. What if I could eliminate that 14.5 minute mini lesson at the beginning of each class? And what would happen to my students' scores if they no longer had classroom lecture? What would happen if I recorded all my lectures, put them online, and had my students watch those at home instead of doing their homework at home? And then, how could I make sure that I knew they watched those video lectures? I decided to flip teach my class. Flip teaching is a form of blended learning in which students learn new content by watching video lectures and doing other activities online instead of doing the typical homework, which is then done in class. Whenever I do something in my classroom, I'm very intentional about it. Research on flipped classrooms is at best inconclusive, so I wasn't sure if I should use it or not. But I thought I'd do an experiment just to see if it worked out. So I presented it to my class. They agreed to try it. I started posting lectures on Moodle, which is an open source e-learning platform. That way I could log in and see which students were accessing my videos and how long they were watching and what they were doing online with the other assignments and things that I posted there. Basically, it made it accountable. I collected data on my students for the first 8 weeks of traditional instruction, by which I mean, of course, the mini lessons that I was giving at the beginning of the class period. Then, at the end of those 8 weeks, I skipped 2 weeks worth of data, simply because that was the time that we were flipping the classroom and there were some problems and things that we needed to work out. Once everybody was comfortable with the system, I again started collecting data for another 8 weeks. Now, it's important to note that during this time period, I had no students add or drop my class. The class composition remained exactly the same, all the same people. And here's what I found. During the first 8 weeks, the overall average score in my classroom in geometry was 77.8%, which your average education class will tell you that's about right. It should be around 75%, which should be average. However, during the second 8-week period, I collected the same data from the same students, and the average overall score on these students was 83.4%. Another important thing to note here is that in both of these 8-week periods, we covered material over 2 chapters. So they both covered 2 chapters, and actually the second installment, because of the way that math works, was more difficult than the first, simply because these concepts from the first one are now rolled up with the second one, plus new ones. Now, would I do this in all my classes? No, because I believe it wouldn't always enhance my student learning. However, I am putting more materials and projects online for my other classes because it does support the student learning that is already occurring in the classroom. Now there's a lot more that goes into flipping a classroom that I can share with you. If you have questions or comments, leave them below and I'll address those in future episodes. Until then, remember, never teach your pupils, only provide the conditions in which they can learn. Albert Einstein said that. Do you think he'd flip?